Jeff, money all over the floor here.
Oh,
She picks it up, she don't give it to me.
All in the pocket.
hey. If you're good, I might give it to you.
Ugh.
Man, hey,
Last night.
I know, well,
Wait, you're not even in school. Yeah. Pick up with you.
what do you call yourself as the clown?
Look at the clown.
Oh, you're not, okay, you don't go by name.
It is. Look at.
Look at, Lookit.
That's the first name. The is the second name, and clown is the third name.
All right.
Look at the clown.
That's funny. Did you ever dress up for the Wednesday night market in
Oh
Attenborough?
yes,
You did?
yes. I did it on roller skates one time.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. And that was so long ago that they started that.
Yeah.
You know.
TV studio. Good. Very interesting. Actually, we're just in the middle of a shoot. But I can tell you quickly. 50 people showed up to a forced opposition. They limited it to one speaker. And it was left that they had asked for, the school committee had asked for a ruling as to exactly.
You probably don't remember the Comida lunch. It was the name of the lunch card that John Moran's brother-in-law, had started at the same time that John started Mill Street. And after someone named Provost was one of the shot order cooks, they called me. And we used to go there all the time and get hot dogs for a nickel. That were the rolls were steamed, you know, so that they were warm and soft, and had mustard, pickles, and relish on them for a nickel. And one was never enough. You always had to have a second one. When we were kids, you never had enough to eat. And Provost had it after Hamill had stopped. Hamill was his name. Had stopped running it. And it was next to the Sun Market. You know where the Sun Market is on Union Street? Well, you know where the Chinese place is on the corner of Union and Park?
Yeah.
It's next door to that. And there's now just a driveway where someone could go in and park. And there used to be one of those lunch carts, they called them, that actually came on wheels.
It was like the hot dog stand.
And no, it wasn't a stand. It was a regular eating place where people would go in and sit and have full meals.
Is that like Coney Island kind of?
Yeah,
Oh.
only that's
Right.
a cheaper one, you know, this
Yeah.
was a more expensive one. And they had one across the street too. I forget the name of the person that ran there.
Do you want us to put these on, Mr. Carr?
Just a moment.
They used to have quite a few lunch cards in Attleboro because people used to have an hour off for dinner and didn't go home, they'd go to a lunch cart to eat. And it was very cheap eating, reasonable, because they didn't make much money as jewelry workers.
Okay.
All right, where do you want me?
Let's,
Behind the table?
hold on there.
Want me to move?
No. Jeff, decide where he wants you.
Try to feed that behind you so we don't see the cord. Put that with your foot and you can do the same.
Over your shoulder, maybe?
Actually, is your sweater on top?
Yeah.
Come underneath it. Come on up. That way you won't see the cord. You obviously don't need to do that. Your sweater's open.
Yeah, that's good.
And then flip it like this.
Flip it right to your sweater.
There you go.
Looks like you got a little pin on.
So you've got a little button there.
Yeah.
Let's see. Excellent. Good. I'm dying. Actually, I'm gonna have you stand right
Right here?
here. Because the mic.
All right.
Sure.
Yep. Want me to just hold this? Okay. Want to test me before
Yes. We're on number.
I don't know.
I can see the reflection in the window. See it?
Good morning. How's that?
Keep going.
Good morning, Jeff. Testing. 1, 2, 3.
No.
What?
Sorry, hold on.
Yep.
As they say.
Should I be holding a button or something?
No. There.
Oh.
Number 2.
Helps to plug it in.
No, it helps have the right part.
1, 2,
There you
3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
are.
Okay.
Yeah,
All ready? You tell me when.
It's a little hot. Take one step to your left, other left. Sorry, my
Am I
left.
right?
Yeah. Come back this way just a little more. Good. Oh, that's cool. Hey, hold on, look. She used to you. Yes.
You should see
I don't have any time.
at Westfield State. I
Yes.
visit the TV studio. It's so nice. So when they set up with all the cameras and they do different designs and stuff for the backgrounds and shit. So
I always thought they were real. The background was real.
yeah, I'm so excited.
Is that what you remember?
Yeah,
I heard it's boring.
it's by her too. Just like Attenborough, that's what we said. It is Attenborough, we say. It's supposed to be like the sister town.
Okay, ready to have?
It's kind of
Just. Okay, stand by.
I'm Diane Spatcher, Social Studies Department, Attleboro High School.
Cut, sorry. One more time. Ready? Perfectly focused. Okay.
I'm Diane Spatcher, Social Studies Department, Attleboro High School. Today, as part of Attleboro's Millennium Project on the city's mayors, we're going to introduce, or rather interview, Mr. Lawrence Fitton, former member of the City Council, stop.
As they say, take 2.
Stop it, I'm gonna do this one again, because I messed up on this. All right, former member of the City Council, office supervisor of planning and zoning, that's too much. What am I gonna say? No, I just wanna think about, all right, go ahead. Office supervisor of zoning and planning and zoning. Okay, ready? I'm Diane Spatcher, Attleboro High School Social Studies Department. Today, as part of Attleboro's Millennium Project on the city's mayors, we're going to interview Mr. Lawrence Fitton, former member of the City Council, lifelong Attleboroian, and perhaps best known as Look at the Clown. Mr. Fitton is going to share with us some of his memories of his involvement in local politics, particularly as related to former mayors Shane, Brennan, and O'Neill.
now. Yes, you need some water?
No.
You want a
it's
cup of
just-
water?
I'll get you a cup. I'll go get you some water.
Okay, both
Just
of
the way
us.
you were-
Water.
I'll get some cups.
My eyes are all red.
Nervous?
No,
Oh,
wait.
no.
Piece of cake.
Yeah.
Good. Oh, your trip to Florida got approved last night.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know.
I watched
so-
it. I was really nervous though.
They started to talk about
Yeah.
days off.
Yeah, it was only 3 days. It's not a big deal, but
To them it is.
It's not like it matters how many days we miss this year, anyways.
Yeah, that's seniors.
well, yeah, for us, but the
That's
rest of the
true.
team.
Well, even then, they don't care how many times you're absent anymore.
Yeah, I know.
Chrissy, take your sweater and, okay.
I'm just saying,
Yeah, white things all over.
Okay. We'll wait for Miss Thatcher, or you want to begin? You can begin.
But she didn't introduce us though.
Art interview.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, it's, we don't have. How would do that off camera? Let's do an audio test. You're on 3 and 1.
Okay.
Chrissy, talk to me.
Okay. Talking to.
Up to 10.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Yes, they just picked up.
I forgot that. Can I just step in and do that?
Yeah.
All right, now, shall they have their water right on the table with them? Or how do you want?
Yeah, you can do that.
I even have a, look at this. I even,
How professional is this?
thank, this is the silver. Yeah, I forgot to introduce you.
That's you?
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
Oh, it's warm.
Don't knock it.
It's wet.
It's wet. I don't want to hear any.
Straight from the reservoir, right, Larry?
Yeah.
Right.
I hate to say what it's straight from. Please. Let's not even go there.
We can use a finger bowl.
All right. Where's the mic? Where's my mic on?
Your mic has to on. Right here. Before we do that, Jess, give me audio.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Again.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Okay.
2. Actually, I'm going to have you just introduce them off camera. Today's interviewees.
All right. Interviewers are. Okay. What do you want me to do?
Just. Okay. Ladies look like you're intelligent.
All right. Where do you want me to stand?
How do you do that?
interviewers are two members of the class of 2001, Chrissy Provost and Jessica Ralston.
Okay, excellent. Now, we're gonna undo this mic
Take it away.
and plug that into Jess's. Which was? That one?
Yep.
Don't tug on Superman's cape. 2. Yes, now for you again?
1.
Much better. Okay, now for me, 10.
1, 2, 3, 4,
Okay, that's
5.
good. And then Jess. Chris,
1, 2, 3.
okay.
I know.
Take off.
I'm so sick. I think I give you Michael.
We could advertise
Okay,
cough
ready?
drops.
Yes, there you go.
Okay, stand by. Action.
Mr. Fitton, have you always been interested in local politics?
Well, when I was old enough to know what it was all about, and when I was 21, when I could vote for the first time, I became interested and voted since then every time I had an opportunity.
You were a friend of Kay Shang. What do you remember most about him as mayor of Attenborough and as your personal friend?
Well, as a man, I immediately had great respect for him. And I remember when he was just a little toddler, 3 or 4 years old, his father had a hand laundry on Union Street. And the kids played around there, and my brother had an automotive store next door, so I was up there quite often. And remember when my brother, who was in the Army, Air Corps, he related to the Chinese because he was in Hawaii for duty, and they used to call the little kids there Ding-ao. And I can remember my brother saying to little Kay Shang, calling him Ding-ao and tapping him on the head. And when I related this to Kay Shang one time, he didn't seem to like it too well, but didn't make anything of it. But he was a very friendly person. He was very ready to run and do his duty, even to taking a dead skunk off the road where someone complained that nobody's coming here to take this dead skunk off the road, and there's Kay Shang with a shovel doing it. And he became a candidate for mayor because when they took his property by eminent domain, it came upon him that he has to now stand up for his rights, and did it, and ran for mayor and didn't win. And I can remember the day after the election, I told him, you have to run again. You don't win the first time any more than when you get up at bat, you don't hit a home run the first time. And I was with Kay Shang after that and voted for him from the first time and voted thereafter for him, for Kay. And even when Judy ran against him, I had to let Judy know that I was with Kay Shang because I related closely to Judy as the mayor, and I was working for the city. But I had the greatest of admiration for Kay Shang and will ever remember him. One of the generous things that he did was he insisted that the town crier outfit I had was worn out, and he was going to get me a new one. I told him I was satisfied with a worn out, and it seemed more authentic being worn out back to 1775. And he insisted that he had made contact with someone in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, that was very cognizant of what the town crier should wear. He took me in his car, 12 hours on the road out to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, had two seamstresses measure me for an authentic outfit that I have today, and paid $750 for it before they put thread through a needle. That's the kind of a guy he was. But I saw him working on projects that people didn't realize how much time it took a mayor to be involved in some of these things that had to be done. And he was always there. Whenever he was called on to speak, he would run in as though he was running into a skirmish on the football field. I'll never forget Kay Shang.
Mr. Fitton, you served on the municipal council when Cyril K. Brennan was mayor. Do you remember any major issues or accomplishments of the Brennan administration?
Well, there were so many, and even before I got on the council, I was impressed when they put in the Thatcher Brook drain that goes from beyond TI over on Pleasant Street by way of Falmouth Street, Brook Street, all the way to the 10-Mile River. And it wasn't adequate because it was hand dug in those days. And I've seen a map that showed on the corner of Pine Street to be edge of swamp. And it drained all that land out through what was called Thatcher Brook Drain. And on a good heavy downpour, when the rain just went from day to day, the rush of water in those inadequate systems would lift the manhole covers up, and it would be gushing out like the geyser. And it cost $100,000 to put that in, and that amazed me that there was so much money to spend at that time. And Cy Brennan was the one that pushed it through, not as a mayor, but member of a committee. But he also enlarged the sewer treatment plant and sent me as a delegate, as a lobbyist to Washington to go with the community development money that was being organized in those days, and got money grant through the for the improvement of the sewer treatment plant, and for the water treatment, making Manchester Reservoir. He was the one that pushed that through. And many of these things that had to be done, that he wanted done, always had someone, I don't know why, against it. It wasn't easy to get things done. But Cy was one who stood ready to do the smallest favor for a citizen of Attleborough as well as any big project. And although he made very little money, I think it was only $3,000 a year, and he would reach in his pocket, and I've seen this, would take out probably his last half a dollar and give it to someone that came looking for a handout.
Francis O'Neill served as mayor from 1944 to 1949. What do you remember about him?
Well, who was that?
Francis O'Neill?
Well, I didn't know too much about Frank O'Neill because as he was growing up and was a photographer, he took over the Godshaw photographer's store in studio on Pleasant Street. And he took my picture as well as the rest of the class of Bliss School 1930 graduation, which, you know, you still have, and you look so young and innocent in those pictures. He ran a studio uptown after that and became a member of the municipal council and chairman of the municipal council, president of the council. He then was either a Democrat first and then a Republican, or both running at the same time for the legislature, which he became a senator. And they named the Speedway, as we called it then, O'Neill Boulevard, in his memory. But he's one of the ones that I never got up to watch, in action. Although when I first became interested in the city council, I used to attend more of the council meetings than some of the council members did.
Well, okay. Thank you, Mr. Fitton.
Yeah.
It's very nice interviewing.
We want to
God.
get into some of that. History.
I can say a little more now. Let me get out of this now and then
Now I'm
I'll
gonna
get.
ask him, this is hot water.
It's getting cooler. I lost my voice like halfway through.
It's wet.
All right, I'm gonna do a little more about you, Larry. What do we want
I
to
just
know?
meant, do you want to have one or two more questions that get more into the oral history of Larry Fitton?
Yeah. You want to ask a couple of questions about the background of Larry Fitton?
Sure.
What do you want to, let's see, what can we think of? What would you like to talk about, Larry?
Well,
Before we,
how do you ever become interested to run for the municipal council?
all right, ask him that. How does somebody become interested in nothing?
How did
No,
you?
you, how I did. not
How did
something.
you get so interested to run for the council? Okay, you guys can do that. Let me get out of the way.
Mr. Fitton, how did you become interested in running for the municipal council?
Well, it goes way back to the 1950s when the Taft-Hartley Act was being enacted in Washington. I was the delegate for the United Jury Workers of Attenborough to go as a lobbyist for the enactment of measures through Congress that would give relief, actually, and aid and abetment to the workers of America. And at that time, we had no holidays with pay, no vacations with pay, no sickness or insurance. And as a result of the United Jury Workers being formed, all these things came into being with the Engelhart Industries that we did business with. At that time, when I went to Washington, I saw Congress that they weren't doing their job as I thought they should any more than a bunch of Boy Scouts having their meetings. And they were paying no attention to what was being said on the subject that they had no interest in, and talking back and forth to someone in back of them. And I thought, these guys are no better or smarter than I am. So when it came an opportunity to run for the municipal council, I felt I was qualified. And did run, and was unsuccessful for 2 tries, and on the third one I did run. And spent a month or so short of 10 years on the municipal council as a water committee chairman. And many of the outlying housing developments were just woods way back then, and it was not easy to convince the rest of the council that you should put water through what is now woods. And they would say to me, you want to put a water pipe out in the woods? I said, yes, like Goldilocks going into grandmother's house in the woods. That was why I became interested. At that time, we got $300 a year as a council person. And I don't think I missed a session. I always was so interested. And made many friendly relations with other people. And got I used to say I have my nose in everybody's business. but that's about the size of it.
Okay, next question.
We got another question for you. We'll write this down, just to ask this one.
Who do you think-
We're coming up with things.
Who do you think the 5 most significant people in Attenborough's history are? Or a few of the most significant people, maybe instead of
Who do you think are
a few of them.
a few of the most significant
People in shaping Attenborough's history.
people in
Larry Fitton for one, top of the
shaping,
list.
in shaping Attleboro as we know it today,
Sure,
as we
from the
No.
class of 2001.
to the class of 1930.
Yeah.
Okay.
Class of 1979.
Can you read that, Jess?
Yeah.
Okay, there's your pen. Let me get out of the way here.
Mr. Fitton, who do you think are a few of the most significant people in shaping Attenborough as we know it today?
Well, if it's what I think,
Do that again.
yeah, do it again.
Jess, read that question again out loud.
Mr. Fitton, who do you think are a few of the most significant people in shaping Attenborough as we know it today?
In shaping Attenborough's history.
All right.
Okay.
He wants it
I
that
can
way.
remember.
Shaping Attleborough's history. Okay.
Mr. Fitton, who do you think are a few of the most significant people in shaping Attenborough's history as we know it today?
Well, what comes to my mind is Thomas Willett. Without him, we wouldn't have Attenborough. And John Daggett, he certainly put into writing the things that we had to know about. Certainly, that had something to do with where we are today from the start. Harold E. Sweet, the first mayor of Attleboro, he was a very smart man and a businessman, and the first term that he had, he said he had enough of going to mashed potatoes and peas dinners, no more of that. He was not going to go to all these dinners that he was invited to in his first term. And he refused the third term because he could have won as Cy Brennan did. Cy Brennan, to my mind, is the one that I respect and remember most. He went out on a limb for people that should have been the ones that were chastised. And when they came with a revaluation, Cy did it, even though he knew it was going to hurt him. And others that were pushing him to do it survived. Let's see, Tom Pigott, his term as mayor comes to my mind because he's least to be thought of to become a mayor. He was just a disgruntled taxpayer that couldn't afford the increase in taxes and came up and complained, and they elected him mayor. And he did a good job. I think anyone that is respected enough to become mayor could handle the job because a mayor doesn't do it alone. And all the other succeeding mayors that we had, McIntyre, during the war, was the greatest mayor. He took care of things and yet came out of it with a surplus because you couldn't do jobs because you couldn't get material to do it. And he did a wonderful job, and this is quite a man today, a beautiful person. And there isn't a mayor that's ever been elected or ever will be elected that won't be a nice person to do the job because nice people don't win.
Yeah.
Okay, we got another one for you. Another question. Who's turn? Chrissy's? All right. What did we say, Jeff? This is gonna, oh, I know. Over the years.
Over the years, that was what my
The
hair
years.
was.
What changes have you witnessed?
Oh, boy, changes that I've seen.
In downtown
Yeah.
We're gonna do it in downtown Attleboro. And we're gonna put another thing on the end after you answer that one.
Yeah.
What do you see for the future?
Catastrophe.
You two can split those questions, try that. We got him here, we gotta make him talk.
Catastrophe. Catastrophe.
Over the years, what changes have you witnessed in downtown Attleboro?
Well, I'll tell you, I've witnessed a lot of them. The one that comes to mind first is I consider Maury Street downtown Attleboro, and there was a blacksmith shop on Maury Street next to the Taunton Branch Railroad. And as a kid, I used to hang around the John Simpson's blacksmith shop, and especially in the winter, you know, where it was cold outside, and inside with the forge going, it was nice and warm. And he let us hang around there, and one of the things he let us do was to put a lubricant on the horse's hoofs after he had shod them. And, you know, it was like getting your nails manicured. It was a wonderful time. The streets uptown even were dirt roads. And in the summertime, they used to have a water wagon that would sprinkle the roads. And they had a water pipe that was at the common and used to extend over the sidewalk, and it would fill the water tank. Quite often it would be made of wood, a wooden tank on a team, horse-drawn, and on the back of it there was a pipe that had holes in it that would allow the water to trickle out through the whole street. Because in the summertime, the dust would get into everything in the house when the wind is blowing in the dusty streets. The water and sewer extensions was something that came through during the time from 1914 on. They had a sewer treatment, and people used to have their own outhouse facilities. That was tough in the wintertime. The merchants were different. They had walk-in grocers where you went in and you ordered the grocery one at a time, and the grocer would run to the shelf and get it and bring it back to the counter. And then on a paper bag, he would with pencil jot down the figures and figure them up. And they were clever and fast at doing that. And probably even more correct than they do mechanically now. That's always in the favor of the store when they make an error. They had barber shops, probably four different barber shops downtown then, which they don't have anymore. And I don't think there was a beauty shop. The women did their own beauty preparations at home, and the men were satisfied with that. Because I think that's the only thing they go to a beauty shop is to make them look good for the men. They had movies. They had 3 different movies: the Bates Theater, the Columbia Theater, and the Star Theater. And I saw before the talking movies. They were very crude. And I was probably about 7 or 8 years old when I first saw Over the Hills to the Poorhouse. It was one of the films that I saw. And I remember a submarine movie where the man that went down to rescue the ones that were down the bottom, he was hitting on the side of the submarine to give them the notice that he was outside there to protect them and save them. And the canvas of the submarine, you could see it go in every time you hit it with a gun. And I can remember the detail of it from way back then. And we used to go to the movies every Saturday for 10 cents. And there was a girl named Glenna Knight that was always the first one in line, every time. Because her mother worked for Cooper's in the cigar and candy counter. And so, you know, it was very convenient for her to be uptown and be the first one in line. They had a Pathé News that showed the news events at the time. They had a serial where from one week to the next it would be a cliffhanger where the heroine or the hero was about to be wiped out and be saved for the next serial. They had vaudeville, and some of the comedians that got to be famous were on a circuit that came through town. Then they had feature cowboy movies, and every time the kids went to the cowboy movies on the way home, they would say, slap their hips and say, giddy up, and running like cowboys. They played cowboys and Indians because there were many cowboy and Indian movies then, which you don't see now. They had ice cream places that you got a cone for a nickel. And Robert Slater had his own ice cream manufacturing place in a building back of his house on Holman Street. And when Robert Slater would serve you the ice cream, it was a dipper, but when the women that worked for him in the kitchen, because he did catering as well, they would heap it on, but Slater gave you just a nickel for that. And I remember when Slater was retired, I had taken him to a GAR dining club. That was the Grand Army of the Republic. And he had served us, and he made the most wonderful chicken pie that you could ever imagine. And when I told him of things that were going on uptown and in the government, he would say to me, "My blessed Redeemer." I'll never forget those words. And we invited him to our Grand Army dinners that were held in the YMCA. And one of the Ralph Gunner's brother, can't think of his first name now, Albert Gunner, he was the secretary for the Grand Army Republican Dining Club for 50 years. And I was a secretary toward the end of that. And Bob Chilton was the secretary before that. He just passed away a week or so ago. So there's been so many things that have changed downtown. You talk about the farmers markets that they have now. They used to have farmer markets when the farmers would bring their produce in horse and wagon up to the common and sell them right around off the wagon right at the common. And I've seen pictures of that of late. Bill Hammond gets these old pictures and shows what used to be and sometimes what is there now. The armory was in full use way back then, and we had the Company I that was the National Guard. And after the World War II, when they called Company I into regular action, I was a member of the State Guard for 5 years, and we were ready to be called, trained, fully trained to go. In fact, we used to have to spend a night a week in the armory and have to call the police station on the hour to let them know that everything was secure there, because they thought or had word that the Germans were going to send paratroopers into cities and towns and take over their armories. So we had to guard the armories during World War II, if you can imagine that. But the change to recreation is great. Now, there's one thing that I was involved in, when they no longer used the armory for the armorous purposes. And Tom Pickett was mayor, and I stopped in the armory, and they had a person there that they called the armorer that took care of the armory while it was vacant. And he told me that you better get to see Tom Pickett tomorrow. This thing is going to be sold to some politician group that know that it's up for sale. And Tom Pickett immediately got on the ball, and for $1, he was able to save the Attenborough Armory for the city of Attenborough. And it was only because I had gone in to visit with the armorer, knowing it's going to be closed pretty soon. And I had spent 5 years in there, and it was like an old home to me. So there are many other things like the development of the outlying sections of Attenborough that once were woods, and the development has just gone rampant, and they're still doing it. You wonder, where are they going to find more places to put houses, and yet they find a way to do it. As a member of the planning board for 5 years, I had access to problems on both sides of the fence, and they used to call me from both sides of the fence, and I would advise them on both sides of the fence. And one of the things that I remember was when the Jehovah's Witnesses thought that the Route 95 was going to come in and wipe out their temple. They came to the planning board office when I was there as a group of the elders or whatever they call themselves, and told me that they were concerned that it would wipe them out. I told them, have faith. And it went by them. So there have been many, many things that we take for granted now that realized. And it goes all the way back to when the Indians lived in Attenborough. They were in different locations where artifacts have been found. And the reason why they left all these things there was because when the settlers came, they brought their disease, and it wiped out the Indians because they had no immunity against them. And whole families would be wiped out, and everything they owned was right there. There wasn't any wills passing it on to other coming. And even the method of taking care of the dead. I can remember when many, many of the people were laid out in their own homes. And I saw an ad in the paper for an undertaker on South Main Street that would provide a undertaking packed with ice in the summertime. They had to preserve them for that short time that they were on view. Other than that, we've got things coming our way.
And based on those changes, what do you see for the future of Attenborough?
Well, the future of Attenborough, it seems that we are becoming more service-oriented, that things that people want done for them are being done, and they pay for this to be done. And that leaves more people with more money to have more things done. There never was a thought that they would have manicurists in Attenborough, and yet we've got 2 at least that I know of, and many of the beauty shops do manicuring as well. The business of clothing changes, and see, with the old people, they've got clothes that they've had for probably 40 years and still wearing them. There will be styles of clothing that because someone did something and wore something that everybody thought was so great, they're going to have different styles of clothing. The comforts and concern for the environment is something that's going to prove beneficial. I know back in 1930, on my way to the high school, I stopped and looked at the 10-mile river to see if I could see life in the river. And I think I spent 15 minutes looking down there, and there was no sign of even a tadpole. And yet that river now is being cleaned up. And there are people that devote themselves to the cleanup of the 10-mile river. So the environment as well, we used to be able to have a trash barrel out in the backyard and burn your rubbish. We used to burn our leaves, and it was the thing to do on the Halloween, is to get a pile of leaves and together and burn them. And the wonderful smell of burning leaves, that's what I miss more than anything else. It's just a unique, wonderful smell. I don't know what else there is. I think we will find things to eat that in the preparation of food that they've come along with so far that will be even greater than what we have today. And health will be improved. And I think they will find out that the way the health system is run now, that just costs so much money, will have to be handled so that it's within means of payment. As far as government goes, it would almost seem we're going down the wrong road with this new election, but I have always felt that I can get along with whoever is elected, and I think that's the way it will be. I don't think we'll change our form of government. We might make some changes. I think the municipal council and mayor will continue on with improvements. There's always a demand, and demands will be met. That's it.
Let's close with one last question, that is, 100 years from now, how would you like people to remember? If there's one thing that people could remember about you, what
You
would
can
it be?
look at the clown if you want.
You can do it.
Do anything you
Don't
want.
prejudice it.
Anything you want.
Mr. Fitton, 100 years from now, how would you want people to remember? What would be the one thing you would want them to remember?
Well, all they will have to do,
Hold on.
yeah,
Make this question personal. Remember about you.
Okay. Mr. Fitton, 100 years from now, what would you want people to most remember about you?
well, I'll tell you, it's going to be the easiest thing in the world for them to find. In the chest, I think it was, when they had a celebration and asked the citizens if they would write down something for people 100 years from now to read, I put it in a letter. And in that letter, I told them what come into my mind to write such a letter. So it's already been taken care of. But what I would like them to remember me for is that I did what I wanted to do when I felt like doing it. It seemed like the things happened, incidents occurred that led me to do things that it almost seems like the Creator had planned for me, and this is what the Creator has wanted me to do. And occasions come forward that promote you to do these things. It's nothing that you think of, because I firmly believe that if I were the Creator, I would have created the being, which would be me, to do what I wanted him to do, not what he wanted to do. And if you didn't have that, everybody would probably want to be a plumber and make big bucks. So the Creator had to create everybody to do all these other things that have to be done. And the occasions when you want to do something that you know you should do back in your mind, things kind of set up for it that you don't set up, and yet a Creator would have set it up as a man setting a stage. And in my mind, the Creator was perfect, and all creation is perfect. Because you go down to the smallest animalcule that you have to put under a microscope to see, that little thing is perfect, doing its thing as it was created to do. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, hold on, we're going to do a thank you with Grisha.
Okay. Do you know what an animalcule is?
No.
I don't either. I just made that up. No, it's the tiniest little life. You can't see them. And do you know that fleas have lice? Fleas? Didn't you ever see a flea scratching?
Wow.
Did you ever see a flea scratching?
Ready? Okay, you're going to do a thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fitton.
Okay. Been a pleasure
You too.
to be interviewed.
Okay, excellent, Liz.
Okay. Oh, we're gonna unhook.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we gotta get you on the wire here.
Is it place I can call you? Or you want?
Oh,
Okay. Okay.
how smart I am. I don't know where, I
Yeah.
don't know where this goes to, where it goes. Oh dear.
And you might, right, before you.
I don't know what happened to my, oh, there it is.
All right, now,
Okay. Okay. It's okay to okay, payday. They used to have an ad that was a store uptown, Kay's Jewelers. And the ad on the radio was, it's okay to okay, payday. Good.